Hello everyone, welcome to the channel, welcome to the video. Today I want to do something a bit nostalgic. I'm going to look back on and talk about the best-selling games of the last 10 years. So for each year, from 2010 to 2020, the best-selling games of each year, with a bit of a twist. Because out of those 10, 8 of them are Call of Duty games. I don't really play Call of Duty anymore. I think that'll be a bit of a boring video, so I'm actually excluding all Call of Duty games and any sports games because I don't play those either. So things like Madden, NBA, FIFA, things like that. So we'll be going for things. I will obviously note down, for the purposes of these were the best-selling games, which games were best-selling and which games came in where, but I will be mostly discussing the games that aren't those. So, without further ado then, let's get started. Why waste any time? So, starting with 2010. And it was Red Dead Redemption. Unbelievably, this game came out 11 years ago, guys. That is... I can't believe that. This game actually passed me by at the time, but I can see why it was the best-selling game of the year. So, Red Dead Redemption was, I think, something that had never really come out before. In the way anyone had done something. It was such an interesting concept, such an interesting environment and setting, and obviously it's Rockstar, so it had a lot of clout to it and a lot of hype as well when it was coming out. But it is culturally significant, I think, as a game. Everyone remembered it. Spoiler warning right off the bat, I'm sure everyone's aware anyway, but John's death scene is regularly ranked as one of the most emotional scenes within gaming and entertainment in general, if I'm honest. So the entire game became just this cultural milestone in gaming, I think, showing just what is possible when people put their minds to it. So absolutely, that deserves to be at the number 3 spot. It was beaten out that year by Call of Duty Black Ops and a FIFA game. So there you go. So on to 2011. And of course it is Skyrim. Again, I can't believe it was that long ago this game came out. But this game was interesting for me when it came out. I'd played Morrowind, I'd played Oblivion, and they'd reduced a lot of the RPG aspects, but I can completely see why it was one of the best-selling games of the year. It was incredible. The Nordic world that you were in, the sort of Viking-esque thing, dragons, it was just the epitome of what an RPG could be there. And it was such an interesting and sort of dedicated world to explore, you know, because everything was placed. And what's actually quite impressive is it's still relevant. On PC, with the modding community and whatnot, it's still a very popular game, even today. 10 years after it initially came out. Which I think is very impressive. How many other games can actually say that, let's be honest. And I would potentially go so far as to say it was one of the most significant games of all time. My only downside to this is I'm getting kind of annoyed that Bethesda are just re-releasing it on everything they can get their hands on. I mean, you can get it on virtually any console, any platform now. Soon you'll be able to play it on your smart fridge. But it's... I would rather they focus working on a new Fallout game or the Elder Scrolls 6. That would be nice. But anyway, on to 2012. Okay, and in 2012 we had Halo 4. Now, again, this is actually one of those games that I never actually got hold of at the time. Did get onto it later though, but I do remember that this game was a bit divisive, with new Halo fans enjoying it, old Halo fans not so much. This was the first game made by 343 Studios rather than Bungie themselves, and it was quite divisive. They got rid of a lot of what made Halo Halo, and it was very blatant that Microsoft wanted themselves a Call of Duty, so they introduced a load of Call of Duty-like features into the multiplayer, and I know that annoyed a lot of people. I also believe that the story wasn't comparable to the previous 3, which I get, and it's a main criticism, was one of the main selling points of the year. I think, personally, that was mostly down to hype and not because it was actually a great game. However, having said that, I can see why Microsoft did what they did. You know, Call of Duty, as I mentioned earlier, and will flash on screen now, has been the best-selling game 8 years out of the last 10. So I can see why they did it. I just think it was kind of a slap in the face to the dedicated fans of the series. So anyway, yeah, on to the next one then for 2013. And this is the first year that we have no Call of Duty at all. This year it was GTA 5. Now, I think anyone who's played video games ever knew that this was coming somewhere in this list, but yeah, 2013. Again, with all of these games, I cannot believe how old this game is. And one thing I will note with this game, still relevant, because of GTA Online, it shipped with effectively a second game with GTA Online, and that has been incredibly successful for Rockstar, both financially and in terms of just how many people seem to enjoy it and the depth of what you can do on it. But even in the single player, the story was engaging, it kept you focused, and it's a GTA, you know, you can run around and have as much fun as you like. I think it should be noted that, as I mentioned, it's been very successful. It has actually been in the top 10 best-selling games every single year since its release up until 2019, and even then in 2020 it was number 12. It was only just outside the top 10 every single year for its. Can you think of any other game that's managed to achieve that level of longevity? And the only other thing to note, of course, would be that, much like Minecraft and some other games, it gets free updates on GTA Online. You don't have to, you can obviously buy money, I believe. I haven't played it for a long time, but yeah, that's something great, and I think other developers should look to Rockstar for how you monetize a game in that sense. I have my own issues with monetization and microtransactions, but that's for another video entirely. And okay then, so let's move on to 2014, shall we? And 2014 is the year of Destiny. Oh, Destiny, how I was brought in by your hype. I was on the hype train for this one, guys. I bought first class tickets to the hype train. And I was mostly let down, to be honest. I did think it was a good game. I thought it was a very interesting premise. Okay, that's what the good things. That's what it's got going for it. It's an incredibly interesting premise. I've always enjoyed the way the factions work and how they operate, and the fact that they gave them all different personalities and whatnot, and I thought that was great. That's it. That's basically all I've got to say. It was fun to play with friends, but at the end, it got very repetitive. There wasn't much end-game content when it came out initially. They did fix that with a lot of the updates, and by the end of its run, it actually was quite fun to play, and there was a lot to do. But there was so much missing when it was initially launched that it just got so boring so quickly. That was just really disappointing for me. But yeah, as I mentioned, I think the only reason this game is at this level of one of the best games sold that year is purely down to hype, and not because it was actually worthy of that title. It was not the third best game released that year, I can guarantee you. But let's cheer ourselves up and move on to 2015, shall we? Okay, in 2015 we have Fallout 4, which I was very surprised by. I knew it did well, but not that well. And obviously it came in third this year, behind Black Ops 3 and Madden, but I'm surprised it was so high up. Now, Fallout 4 was quite a divisive game. I remember it at the time. They really toned down a lot of the RPG elements, particularly in regards to dialogue choices. That was incredibly slimmed down. And they did it in the name of accessibility, which honestly just never sounds like a good idea to me. However, I'm going to admit something here, controversially. Personally, I actually really enjoyed it. I thought it was a really good game, and I had a lot of fun with it. So, take that for what it is. I quite liked the story. A lot of people thought it was boring. I quite liked it. I loved the Brotherhood of Steel for one solid reason. They had a blimp called the Prydwen, and as a Welshman, that made me very happy. Yay, Wales! Woo! Representation! And back to the review. So, Fallout was a disappointment to some, good for others. Not much more to say about it, I think. Moving on to 2016. So, for 2016, we have The Division. And this is another one like Destiny, where I got caught up in the hype train. And I think, again, that's why it sold as well as it did, beating out a lot of strong competition that year as well. It was a good game. It was fun right up until you hit the end. It was kind of repetitive. The missions were a bit boring. They got very samey as you went through. The bosses tended to just be bullet sponges rather than having to do anything interesting with them. And a major issue that people had was the step down from the graphics. So the footage you're seeing actually on screen is from that E3 demo trailer and gameplay trailer, sorry, and you can see it's a good-looking game. Even from 2016, that is a good-looking game. Unfortunately, the graphics took an enormous hit so that it'd be able to work on the then current generation of consoles, and a lot of people, including myself, were quite unhappy about this. It felt like a bit of a slap in the face, like they cheated us. A lot of people bought this game because it looked so good and it looked so much fun, but then there was also features missing and just a whole host of other issues that caused this to die off initially. And of course, that's the rather strange paradox about this game, is that when they started adding a load of interesting features to the game and more DLC, by the end of its run, it was considered actually a very solid game, solid experience. I unfortunately never went back to it after the first couple of weeks. And I have mentioned in my previous video, I'm not a fan of this sell a game that's either broken or missing a load of stuff that was promised and fix it by patch. I don't agree with it for a number of reasons, but I will be getting into that in a future video that I've got planned, that issues I have with the gaming industry. Maybe I'll come back and add a banner in the top corner so you can click on that, but until then, though, I think I've made my feelings about this game reasonably clear, so I'll leave it there, and shall we move on to 2017? And for 2017 we have Destiny 2, the sequel! Now, I personally felt that Destiny 2 was way better on the story. It really reinvigorated the characters. I mean, Cade 6, that was fantastic. A lot of the updates it gave were brilliant, story-wise. It really engaged you with the world that they were creating. And as I said with the previous Destiny, I've always thought the world of Destiny, the lore of Destiny, is very interesting. However, there were still issues with game content, particularly when it first launched, being repetitive. I mean, there's a pattern here, isn't there, with these online games? It was repetitive. A lot of the bosses were criticised as bullet sponges. With Destiny, you have, I mean, literal space magic. The bosses could do so much, but a lot of them, it was just shoot them. Whilst I enjoyed Destiny 2, very much so, actually, and hundreds of hours into it, it felt repetitive. It felt like such a grind. I mean, the grind was real with Destiny 2, and I couldn't pin my finger down on it, but my best friend who I play Destiny with actually said that the problem with it was that they didn't give enough to retain returning players. There wasn't enough different about it to keep you grounded and keep you within the game. Every update that came out, we noticed we were playing less and less of the game. So that's unfortunate. And again, I think with Destiny 2, it became so high up the list because of the hype train. Again, there's a bit of a pattern forming here, but it was a good game, just nothing to write home about really, and certainly not up to the caliber of some of the other games on this list. Okay, so shall we move on to 2018? Now, I think some of you might have guessed this one for this year, but it was, of course, Red Dead Redemption 2. And there was no, as long as we exclude Black Ops or Call of Duty or whatever, nope, RDR2 won out, best-selling game of the year, and I completely see why. It is one of the best games money can buy. Potentially, actually, one of the best gaming experience money can buy. The storyline is unbelievable. It hits you so hard. And I talk about this a lot more in my previous video, Top 5 Open World Games, where I discuss it at length. So you can see that in the top right corner now if you want to go watch that. But for now, I'll just say it's RDR2. What more can I say that every other YouTuber hasn't? It is amazing. Almost unparalleled story. And graphically, it is one of the most impressive things I've ever seen in the gaming world. It was such a beauty and wonder to just wander around. I mean, it was amazing just to a game to be in. It was an amazing space to enjoy and just wander in and through the Wild West. But as far as I'm concerned, best game ever made, as far as I'm concerned. And I suppose Red Dead Online's alright as well. I mean, did anyone really play that? They've made that free to play now, haven't they? Oh yeah, it wasn't quite the GTA clone I think they wanted, but never mind, I guess. I'll leave it at that though. It's a super fun game to play. It's an amazing experience to play as well. And yeah, go watch my other video if you want more detail on that. But for now, we'll move on to 2019. And in 2019 we have Borderlands 3, the long-awaited proper sequel to Borderlands 2. I know we got the little pre-sequel thing, but I'm going to be honest, I didn't think that was a very good game. So, on to Borderlands 3 then. Now, I do appreciate this game's satire of influencer, YouTuber, Twitch streamer culture. It's quite... the irony is not lost on me that I'm now being a talking head talking about this. So, that's fair, I think. However, I do think a lot of people had this problem. I certainly did anyway. I felt there was a downgrade on the villain. The villain was not Handsome Jack. They were trying to recapture that lightning in the bottle that they got off Borderlands 2, and I just don't think they pulled it off, personally. I think it was too much of a rehash of the last couple of games. Which is really sad, considering Borderlands, in my opinion, is the franchise that kicked off the whole shoot enemies until numbers pop out of their heads and they vomit guns for you, and that is quite unfortunate, I think, in my opinion. But I do believe there was some controversy as well surrounding the CEO of Gearbox Software, and that interestingly didn't seem to hurt the sales of this game at all, which is good considering this game is single-handedly keeping that developer alive, considering they damage every single other IP that they touch. And you can come at me on that one, but I'm standing by my words on that one. I'm sorry. I mean, do I even need to say it? Aliens, Colonial Marines, anyone? Come on. But it was still a looter shooter. It's still a Borderlands game. It was still fun, and it was packed with jokes and comedy and whatnot. So I just think it wasn't as good as people were hoping for. I think that was the disappointment of it. I'll leave that there then, and from there we will move on to the last entry in the list, 2020. And the final one on the list then is actually Animal Crossing New Horizons. Now, I'll be honest with you, not my game, not my type of game. I don't think, I've never played it, I'd never heard of it until this game came out. And the only thing I actually knew about it before looking into it for this video was that it had a really weird crossover meme with Doom Guy. And honestly, from what I understand, it just seems like a mortgage simulator. Although I will drop that. I do understand the game. It seems like it's really fun, actually. I might even think about getting hold of it at some point. It seems just really chill, and I am surprised in the context of this video that it was the third best-selling game of the year, but I think actually lockdown had a lot to do with that. You know, people were stuck indoors, and this just gave them a lot of people a creative outlet that they could play on their Switch, which is always fun to be able to have that on the go. And by on the go, obviously, because of lockdown, I mean on the sofa. I will be honest with you though, I actually find a lot of the creatures really creepy. Like, I don't know what it is about them. I think it's their dead eyes. But it does actually look like kind of a fun game, if somewhat tedious from what I understand. I've looked at quite a few reviews of this for this video, and a lot of people do say it is quite tedious. But, you know, it brought in a ton of new players for the franchise, which is great. You know, it seems like a good franchise. I'd like to see more of it, to be honest. And, you know, it seems like Minecraft, effectively. Very similar, anyway. You can customize your entire island. You can just make what you want. And I think that is generally just very appealing to people in games, so I can see why this did so well. So that was it, guys. That was the top 10 best-selling games of the decade. The best-selling game of each year, excluding the rather dull, constant Call of Duties. So that'll be it from me, though. Thank you so much for watching if you've got this far. And if you have, please do consider maybe liking the video or even subscribing. That would be fantastic. Even if you don't, though, I genuinely just appreciate you for watching this video. It means the world to me when people do. And thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Stay safe.